The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It with your host, BJ Williams.
We have a great show for you today, including a talk with Donis Casey, who wrote The Old Buzzard Had It Coming. But first, Ruby Soutier and Julie Ballou want to tell you about a cookbook that you can check out at your library.
Today we're talking about Brownie Mix Bliss by Camilla Salisbury. This was a really great book. I was really excited to be able to look at this book and try some of the recipes in it. I've enjoyed other similar books along this line, like the Cake Mix Doctor. This type of book uses cake mixes or brownie mixes. In this case, it's boxed brownie mixes to be the base for other recipes. You add nuts or caramel or cream cheese or a whole variety of different things depending on the recipe to make a unique recipe, but the base is a boxed mix. This makes it a really easy cookbook for busy women or working women, someone who doesn't have a lot of time but still really wants to make something special. The only negative I would say is that there's no pictures, and I kind of like a cookbook with pictures because sometimes things look a lot more appealing than maybe they sound in the recipe, and I just enjoy seeing the pictures. But Ruby, didn't you try some of the recipes?
I did. I tried several of the brownie recipes. I tried a recipe for gingerbread brownies. I tried a recipe for orange brownies. I tried my all-time favorite recipe in the book, which was for cinnamon brownies on page 31, and I did bring some of those today. I have made the cinnamon brownies several times, and my sister-in-law, who doesn't really cook very much, asked me for the recipe and actually made it at Thanksgiving for her nephews. I thought that the combination of the cinnamon and chocolate in these brownies was so good that I then went on to try the chocolate chip cinnamon rolls, and I was just a little bit disappointed in those. But I really agree with you, Julie, that using the brownie mix as a base for the recipes and then just enhancing, and that's a great time saver. You don't have to measure flour and sugar and all that stuff. And I also like the ready-to-mix checklist that they gave for novice bakers at the very beginning of this book. Brownie Mix Bliss has about 64 recipes for brownies, and then it also goes into nut bars and cheesecake bars and trifles and all sorts of other kinds of desserts that you can make with brownie mix. I thought it was a great book, and this book is available at your public library and perhaps at your local bookstore.
Hi, I'm Donna Morris, Executive Director of the Metropolitan Library System. 2007 will mark Oklahoma's centennial year. 100 years is a long time, but public libraries have been part of this community since the very beginning. And we're still exactly the same as we've been all along, your primary source for information and entertainment. The delivery methods are different now than in the early days. Today we provide free wireless access, free internet access, DVDs, CDs, free programming for people of all ages, along with the traditional books, magazines, and newspapers. But what hasn't changed is our dedication to helping you find exactly what you need. Librarians continue to be the guides to the up-to-date world of information, and our librarians at MLS are the best in the business. So visit your neighborhood MLS library soon, and as they say in the world of libraries, come check us out.
Well, Doug Benton is sitting next to me, and I guess that means I get to tell him about our book that I have been reading.
Okay, I'm ready.
You're ready. Okay. Well, C.J. Sherry has her 8th book out in the Foreigner series. She does them in sets of 3. Trilogies seem to be a really big thing in science fiction.
Science fiction and fantasy, yeah.
So, in fact, I think she was one of the ones who started that trend of 3s. But this one is called Pretender. And it actually got a starred review in Publishers Weekly, which is pretty big, pretty important. And they referred to the whole Foreigner series as masterful. So they're very impressed with Miss Sherry. think she's doing well.
So do you have to have read the first one of this trilogy to read this one?
Yes.
Oh.
I really think so. The books are not really standalone. She tries to put information in, but she doesn't want to spend the first 3 chapters explaining all of the others.
Well, that's what a trilogy should be, really.
Right,
you know?
right. But this continues her great, she's got action, she's got politics, she's got great character development, and the thing that she is noted for most in science fiction writing is creating believable non-humans. And The Foreigner takes place on a planet that is populated by the Atevi, who are definitely not human. They look human, they seem to have some of the same concepts, but as the humans who inadvertently landed there found out, that's not really the case. Friend means one thing to humans, and associate means another thing to the Atevi. And then a second group of humans comes in, and all sorts of problems ensue. And now Sherry's got them all involved with even stranger creatures from outer space. So lots of political turmoil. The human interfacing with the Atevi has just come back from a 2 or 3 year voyage into space, meeting foreign things, sentient beings who have said, we're not the only ones out here, and this other group that you haven't met yet is even worse than we are. And he thinks, maybe I should take this back home. So he comes back home to find a great deal of political turmoil, and Pretender is about getting that political turmoil resolved. So I'm assuming that the 3rd book, which will be the 9th one in this series, will involve these strange beings from outer space coming to pay a visit. I would recommend, if you're interested in this sort of thing, go to your library and start at the beginning. You can actually pick up any of the trilogies and read them standalone. You can't read one of the books in a trilogy in a standalone. This one is Pretender. It's just it's just out, so if it's not in your library yet, it will be in very shortly, so you can put it on reserve. So, coming up next, Community Reads, MJ Vandeventer from the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum will be talking with Charles Schroeder, who is the director of the Cowboy Hall, about a book that he really enjoyed.
Chuck, thank you so much for letting us be here today to tape read about it.
Delighted.
Well, and you have a wonderful book that you want to talk about, The Facts of Life and Other Dirty Jokes, Willie Nelson's book.
Well, this is a fun read. This is not sophisticated literature. For those that are trying to make an impression at the Literary Society, this may not do it. It is really no more than a series of anecdotes about Willie's life on the road that he recorded, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, sometimes skipping a year. But it really is a wonderful insight into those things that he cares about and those things that he doesn't care about, including some of his favorite dirty jokes.
Well, I skimmed it at Barnes & Noble last night, and I noticed a few racy things.
Well, racy is about as bad as it gets. While it's a little bawdy by Victorian standards, I don't think it will offend the sensibilities of most people who are consuming current popular fiction. But it is a wonderful insight into the way he thinks and the things that amuse him and the things that he observes and feels, which, of course, have flowed into his music for 50 years.
Feels is a good word, because I think we learn a lot about Willie Nelson from this book.
That's very true. It again, perhaps is not a sophisticated psychological analysis, but it's a wonderful insight into a fellow who clearly has an extraordinary capacity to convert his feelings and his observations about life into songs that intrigue us, that amuse us, that perhaps remind us of ourselves in many ways. And here is a guy who has described himself as a pretty simple guy, but history has already recorded that he has had a remarkable impact on American music now for half a century.
What do you think that we learn about him that maybe we didn't know about Willie Nelson from this book?
I think most of us think of Willie Nelson as a celebrity country music singer and on the road and in the bus and and sort of the raucous lifestyle that we envision for celebrities of that nature. What we find in this book is that the things most meaningful to Willie are the people in his life, his friends, his family, and his faith. I think most people don't see Willie Nelson as a particularly spiritual person, but after you read this book, you'll find that it has been and continues to be a very important part of the way he views life and the way he consumes and responds to the world around him.
What would you say is his philosophy of life?
His philosophy is that you need to take risks in your relationships with people. You know, Willie's career, well documented, has had very high highs and very low lows. And what you find through the course of these observations about life is that he has, from start to finish, been close to people, close to family, close to friends. He's given a great deal to his friends, sometimes been richly rewarded, sometimes not. But I think the message that he tries to deliver is that we need each other. And he will continue to reach out to other people in both grand and small ways as long as he lives.
So he's much more than an on-the-road-again person.
Much more.
Thank you so much for being and sharing Willie Nelson with us today.
It's a fun read. Thanks.
Thank you.
Coming up next, I bet and talked with Kim Edwards at the Downtown Library about some CDs that you might want to check out.
Hi everybody, I'm here with Kim Edwards today. Kim works at the Downtown Library, and you are the
Young adult librarian.
Young adult librarian, not teen, young adult. Okay. Well, that means when you talk about music, you should know some of the music that the kids are listening to.
Yeah, I know some of it, and I listen to a lot of it. I try to keep up on it because of my position, so I know what they're listening to.
Okay, so what did you bring us today?
Well, one of the 3 CDs that I brought today is by The Hives, which is Swedish band, and they formed in 1993 as a 5-man band, and they have a really kinetic garage punk kind of sound, more polished, of course. And they have like these great names for in the band member. I think it's Howling Pete, Howling Pele Amquez. Let's see, I got it written down here. Howling Pele Amquez, Nicholas Arson, Chris Dangerous, Dr. Matt Destruction, and Vigilante Carstrom. And I guess they're trying to give off an image that they're dangerous, but they're real rock and roll. That's the image they're trying to give out. This album is really good, and what's the best thing about this album for me is that it's only 30 minutes long.
Whoa, that's, well, that's classical punk. I mean, that stuff really rips by you.
It's really short songs, kinetic guitar riffs, and Howling Pele just yelling on all the songs. There are some really good songs in here, and this is their second effort or third effort. And their first album was Veni Vidi Vicious, and that went platinum. So, and this one was released last year, in July of last year, and it's a really good, you just start bobbing your head to it. When you first put it in, you don't know what you're going to get, and then as soon as the music starts, like I said, with the guitar riffs and Howling Pele just yelling over the rest, it just starts bobbing your head to it. And it's, like I said, it's a short album, so it goes by real fast, but it's really interesting.
A lot of what you've said kind of makes me think of the Sex Pistols. I mean, the names, if nothing else, of the characters and the yowling vocal styles. Do they remind people of the Sex Pistols?
Well, I think they probably more remind people of like a polished garage band, because they're not as, I guess, as dangerous as, say, like the Sex Pistols was, or the actual punk era was, but they have this really polished, like I said, garage sound, and they sound like a garage band. And they're, like I said, according to, I've never seen them in concert, but according to people who've seen them in concert, they're really good concert groups. So, you know, they have that going for them. But it's a really good album, and nice in 30 minutes. That's the best thing about it. You don't have to sit there listening to something for over an hour.
Okay. It's The Hives, and what's the title of the album?
Tyrannosaurus Hives.
Well, it sounds like a band with a sense of humor, anyway, which I think the best punk bands did have.
Yes.
Okay, Kim, thank you very much.
Oh, thank
you. The Hives, Tyrannosaurus Hives. We'll see you again soon.
Coming up next, Heidi Johnson will be talking with Kelly Rhea about some books for our very youngest readers.
Hi, Heidi Johnson is here from Tech Processing. She's brought a beautiful, ageless story called The Fir Tree.
Right, The Little Fir Tree. And even though it came out in the 50s, it is being reissued with new illustrations. And this is just a wonderful new edition that's just recently come out. And it's a heartwarming story about a little boy who cannot come to the Christmas tree since he is laid up in bed. So his dad goes into the woods, picks this little fir tree, digs it up, brings it home, pots it, brings it in the house for the little boy to have his own Christmas tree right next to his bed. And in the spring, they take the Christmas tree back, replant him, and they do again the same thing the following year. And the little boy has so much fun with this. So the little fir tree sort of sitting there waiting for the third winter to come around. And nobody comes to dig him up, to take him to the little boy. And all of a sudden, you hear in the distance singing, and people are coming. And there's the little boy and his family. And he's finally well, and he is able to walk to the little fir tree himself and deck him out for Christmas.
It's a beautiful story. This
Very
one is by
beautiful.
Margaret Wise Brown, and we know that you'll enjoy it.
Right.
I'm glad you brought it, and I hope that everyone will find it. The second one is probably my favorite in this session. It's called Can You See What I See the Night Before Christmas?
Yes.
And it's by Walter Wick.
It's a marvelous book. The illustrations are beautiful. The colors, the topics of the illustrations. And it's picture puzzles. So it tells you, look for this, look for that.
It's a find where you look in the pictures for the various objects.
Correct. Like there's one elf and two owls and a penguin and a horse and 3 lions. And as you go along trying to find these hidden objects within the pictures, you discover so many little details of all the little toys
This would be
that are
a
hidden
great
in them.
opportunity for parents or family with their children to sit, name things, count things.
Definitely, and also colors come into play a lot of times. And I think it's a great book to sit down when the weather is nasty outside and just have fun with.
This is a beautiful book. I hope that you'll look for it. It would make a great present.
Yes, it would.
Can You See What I See? It's Walter Wick, and the second is The Little Fir Tree, Margaret Wise Brown. We hope you'll find them at your favorite bookstore or at your favorite library.
Thanks, Heidi and Kelly. Coming up next, I had an opportunity last month to talk with Donis Casey. She is a new author. She grew up here in Oklahoma. She now lives out of state, but she used her growing up time to help write The Old Buzzard Had It Coming. I think you'll enjoy this book very much. What inspired you to write The Old Buzzard Had It Coming?
Well, interestingly, I was thinking about writing a mystery for several years, and I came up with the idea of a nice murder and a good murder victim. But then after I sold a little business that I had owned for several years in Tempe, Arizona, I decided before I started writing I would do a genealogy for my siblings for Christmas. And as I was getting into all of the family stories, I found so many bizarre and interesting happenings that I decided, I have enough material here for 10 books. And I started talking, it made me interested in all of the settler, pioneer sort of background that we had. And I started talking to my husband about his pioneer, Oklahoma pioneer background. And I started talking to my mother about what it's like to live on the farm and the daily one foot in front of the other living. And everything seemed to come together so very nicely that the book almost wrote itself with the time period and the murder mystery going in on it. that's what led me to come into it and is the genealogy and the whole family history and family background.
Now, you had mentioned earlier when talking to me that the farm on which it's set, which is early 1900s in Oklahoma, before it right after it became a state,
Yes.
that the farm actually existed.
Yes, it does, and it still exists, as a matter of fact, and I believe that there is a relative that still lives out on the farm, even though I haven't been there myself in about 20 years. The family that lives there, it's right outside of Boynton, Oklahoma, in Muskogee County, and the family moved there and homesteaded there from Kentucky, and still live out there. My great-grandfather and my grandmother and all of her siblings were raised on that farm, and I was out at that farm myself a great deal of my childhood. So it's a real place, yes.
Well, you described the family, and the heroine, the lady who solves the mystery, had moved with her husband, and as you described it, it was a whole wagon train. They were all family. I guess everybody in the family said, Oklahoma looks like a good place to go.
That's right, that's right. Well, at the time, it was, people, when they think of Oklahoma, now I live outside of Oklahoma now, and of course people tend to think of Oklahoma as grapes of wrath country, but in this particular time period, it was quite a booming place and quite a going concern, and people came for land, and they came for, of course, for the oil. This is really during the oil boom time, and there was a lot of opportunity. It was the fastest growing state in the Union, as a matter of fact, in 1912. Boynton, Oklahoma, that I talk about in here, was about 10 times bigger than it is now. And lots of business. They had a movie house. It was, the entire state of Oklahoma was quite prosperous. And the family in here is, someone mentioned to me now that how poor they were because they didn't have electricity and they didn't have indoor plumbing, but that's the way everybody was at the time. This is really a rather prosperous family.
Well, you mentioned that the town had electricity. Well, it had the movie theater and they had running water and everything, but obviously nobody had thought about running electrical lines out.
No, that was during the 40s. The Rural Electric Administration, I think, electrified the country outside the towns at the time. It was in the 40s before some of the country places got electricity. So.
Now, Mrs. Tucker, who ends up solving the murder of a person that nobody's going to miss when he's underground. But was she modeled on anybody in your family?
Yeah, she's about half my mother and about half my mother-in-law. And also she's about a quarter me if I had, trying to think what I would have been like if I'd been a woman of her time instead of a woman of my own, which makes her more than a woman, makes her about a woman and a quarter, but that's about right for her.
Well, she was a wonderfully capable person. I'm still trying to figure out how, working on a farm at that time, in a time when you didn't go buy canned peaches, you canned the peaches and so on. She's got 9 kids, and she's still got time to solve a murder.
This is something that I really considered before I wrote the book. Is she's got to have a really compelling motivation, because this is a busy woman with 9 kids and a farm, and so that's why I had her life is her children. Her motivation is her children. When you write a historical, if there's anything that irritates me, it's somebody who has modern sensibilities. So I wanted her to be a woman of her time. And her life and what she considers the most important thing in the world is her children. So if one of her children is involved in any way in this, she's going to be motivated beyond all human understanding to try and find out what happened.
Well, I think she says something about someone commented that woman would defy the Lord to save her children, and she said, well, I think that's why the Lord put me on earth, was to
yes, that's right.
To do that.
I think that's, I actually kind of envy that attitude to be so certain. I grew up, of course, I was a young woman in the 60s, very professional, sort of liberated woman, and which has its glories. But in a way, it must be nice to be certain of your place and your role in life.
But even there, you point out that things are changing. Their oldest daughter is working at the bank.
Yes.
The family supported, made sure that she learned how to type because that's what she wanted to do.
Yes.
And she is obviously very interested in seeing that if any of her children, male or female, want to go into college, that they'll be able to do that. So I think there is a sense that
times are changing. I did like the idea of, there was a lot of parallels between the turn of the 20th century and the turn of the 21st. It's a kind of an uncertain time. and attitudes and things are changing as well. And the parents are, I read some newspapers out of 1915. There were ads in the papers about send your daughter to learn business because you never know what's going to happen. What if she's left a widow? So it was not an uncommon attitude at the time.
Now, have you planned more adventures for her?
Yes, indeed. As I said, I think that Alifair is, if her children are involved, she's going to be motivated to find out what happened. So I thought that I would do a series and concentrate on each one of her eventually 10 children. And that way I thought, well, I certainly have enough family stories to go on for at least 10 more books.
Yeah. Well, I am hoping that you're going to take her outside of Boynton, or Boynton is going to be somewhat depopulated.
Yes, I certainly did have to consider that. Yes, she will have to do a little bit of traveling around. But I have read series where if you use your noggin, I think that you can do it in such a way that I hope that it's interesting and not too unlikely.
Well, I think this book appeals. As you said, it must be wonderful to be that certain, and it's also a time when most of us think that life was simpler.
Yes.
And more clear-cut, even though it may not have been. So I think that's part of its appeal.
I think so too. I get emails on my website from people from all over the country who say, oh, this reminds me so much of my grandmother growing up on the farm. So I think it's a pretty universal American experience that lasted for 200 years and now suddenly is gone.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. It's been a pleasure.
Hi, I'm Donna Morris, Executive Director of the Metropolitan Library System. 2007 will mark Oklahoma's centennial year. 100 years is a long time, but public libraries have been part of this community since the very beginning. And we're still exactly the same as we've been all along, your primary source for information and entertainment. The delivery methods are different now than in the early days. Today we provide free wireless access, free internet access, DVDs, CDs, free programming for people of all ages, along with the traditional books, magazines, and newspapers. But what hasn't changed is our dedication to helping you find exactly what you need. Librarians continue to be the guides to the up-to-date world of information, and our librarians at MLS are the best in the business. So visit your neighborhood MLS library soon, and as they say in the world of libraries, come check us out.
Remember, you can find all of these books and the answers to many questions and information about our programming on the web at www.metrolibrary.org. Be sure and check us out, and thanks for being with us, and we'll see you again next time.